The PlayStation 2 was home to some of the best racing games ever made. Gran Turismo 4, Burnout 3, Need for Speed Underground 2. Games that defined an era. And then there was Noble Racing. Released in 2006, yes, 2006, Noble Racing is a budget title that most people never even heard of. It never came out in America, it never got a sequel, and if you owned it, you were probably either a collector or very unlucky. But I wanted to know what happens when you take a small British car company, a tiny developer, and a bargain bin publisher, and try to make a racing game on the world's best-selling console. Well, let's find out. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, then I play them, review them, and rank them. So yes, after last week's disappointment with Checkered Flag on the Atari Jaguar, we're back to the PS2 with a budget title called Noble Racing. So before we dive into the gameplay, let's just go over a bit of history about the game. So, Noble Racing launched in March of 2006, being developed by Brain in a Jar and published by Midas Interactive Entertainment. So, to understand Noble Racing, you first have to understand the world it came from. Midas Interactive Entertainment was one of the most prolific budget publishers on the PlayStation 2. Their catalogue was filled with games that cost next to nothing, usually retailing for like £9.99 or less, and aimed squarely at kids, parents, or anyone just looking for something cheap to play. They specialised in, let's say, value experiences. Sometimes that meant hidden gems, other times it meant games that felt unfinished, unpolished, or just really weird. And in 2006, when the PS2 was already flooded with high-end racers and the world was moving on to the next generation, Midas released Noble Racing. Developed by Brain in a Jar, a small UK studio known mostly for contract work and some racing games like Truck Racing, this was supposed to be a simple showcase for the British sports car manufacturer Noble Automotive. Noble made fast, lightweight, no-nonsense cars, the kind that could go toe-to-toe with Ferraris and Lotuses, but built out of a garage in Leicestershire. So on paper, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. Take a cool niche British car brand, give them their own racing game, and sell it cheap. What could go wrong? So when you boot up Noble Racing, immediately you can tell this was made on a shoestring budget. The menus just look off. The text is small and oddly placed. It's like they didn't want to use much of the screen, so just slapped it all on the left hand side quite small. The layout's confusing sometimes, and it feels like you're navigating a placeholder UI that somehow made it into the final game. And once you start the game, the visuals don't exactly make a strong first impression either. The car models are basic, even compared to PS2 games from like 5 years beforehand. The reflections are muddy, the lighting is flat, and the environments, well, let's just say the trees look like they came straight out of a PlayStation 1 demo. There's something almost nostalgic about it, but not in a good way. Still, you might think, okay, it's a budget title, maybe the gameplay makes up for it. And this is where things get interesting. Noble Racing features a total of 5 cars. Yes, just 5. All of them are Noble, obviously, and one of those 5 is literally just a racing version of a car you already have, so technically 4 cars and a skin. To unlock them, you don't win championships or complete events. Instead, you choose a track, select a car, and if you can beat that car in a one-on-one, you unlock it. To unlock new tracks, it's a somewhat similar concept. You choose the track, and then you beat the track's time trial, and then it's unlocked. It's an odd system. It feels like the game was halfway between a test drive simulator and a proper racer, but never really decided which. There are races with CPU opponents, up to 7 at once, but you can't actually do them until you've unlocked the tracks and cars first. So for a while, Noble Racing isn't really a racing game, it's more of a time trial game. And once you finally get to race other cars, the handling hits you like a brick wall. Every car, no matter which one you pick, slides all over the track. Even the CPU seems to struggle with their own vehicles spinning out or crashing into barriers like they're fighting the same physics you are. Which, hey, at least it makes it fair. It's frustrating because every now and then you'll nail a corner perfectly and for just a moment it feels so good. The cars are fast, the engine sounds are loud and aggressive, you can almost sense what the developers were going for, a pure stripped down driving experience. But those moments are fleeting. Most of the time you're wrestling the car rather than actually driving it, trying desperately not to fishtail out of control on every single turn. It's clear that Noble Racing was made with a tiny budget. The environments are sparse and lifeless, generic countryside roads, industrial tracks and city circuits that all just kind of blend together after a while. The trees, for whatever reason, are particularly bad, like flat cardboard cutouts that wave in the wind just enough to remind you that they are indeed fake. And while the cars are recognisable as Nobles, they lack the detail and polish you'd expect even from mid-tier PS2 games. Compared to something like Gran Turismo 4, which came out 2 years earlier, Noble Racing looks like a tech demo for an inferior console. Even some smaller titles that we've covered in this series, like Ford Racing, completely outclass it in visuals, sound and physics. But maybe comparing Noble Racing to AAA games isn't fair. This wasn't meant to compete with Gran Turismo, it was meant to sit on a store shelf or a bargain bin, look like a racing game, and run well enough to justify its price tag. And to be fair, it does run, mostly. The mid-2000s budget racing scene was quite weird. Publishers like Midas and Phoenix Games churned out dozens of low-cost racers, all using recycled assets, loose physics, and minimal features. They were designed to look like the big boys, but cost a fraction of the price of said big boys. In that sense, Noble Racing fits right in. It's not offensively bad, it's just painfully average. It's the kind of game that would come bundled with a steering wheel peripheral that doesn't really work, or sit in a bargain bin next to Crazy Frog Racer. What makes it interesting though is that it's officially licensed. Most budget racers didn't bother with real brands or cars, but Noble Racing had a genuine automotive license, which gives it a weird place in the PS2 history. Part of me actually feels bad for even mentioning this game in the same words as Phoenix Games, because Phoenix Games would never make something of this high quality. Theirs were much worse. When you step back and look at Noble Racing now, it's hard not to feel a little sympathy for it. Brain in a jar were a small team working within huge limitations. They had a single car brand to build a game around, a tiny budget, and a rapidly aging console to work with. In some ways, Noble Racing is a time capsule, a reminder of what the PS2 era was like for smaller developers, a time when you could still get a game published on physical shelves, even if it wasn't perfect. It's rough, it's messy, it's full of strange design choices, but it's also authentic in a way modern games rarely are. When things go right, when you manage to control the slide, hit the apex and cross the line, you do get a glimpse of the passion behind it. It just never fully comes together. Now, in terms of critical response, it's been quite difficult to find literally any kind of review for this game, because it came out so late into the PS2's lifespan, and also only released in a very limited part of the world. So, I'm just going to go off the Game FAQ's user score, which has given it playable, which is like 2.5 stars. And even then, it's only got 9 user ratings, so that's really not that many. And as I'm sure you can probably guess, due to the lack of reviews, there's also absolutely no sales figures whatsoever, so I'm sure we can safely assume that this game did not sell very well. If we take a look on the price tracking website Price Charting, we can see that for a PAL version of Noble Racing, a complete still-in-box copy with manual as well is worth about £6.80. So, not very much. So now the time has come to rank Noble Racing on our worst racing games tier list. This certainly isn't the worst racing game that we've played in this series, but it definitely isn't the best one either. It's another one that's just kind of middling, to be honest. The handling is not good, but there were good intentions behind it. So on that note, I'm going to put it in the rubbish tier, right slap bang in the middle. There's not enough content and not enough quality for it to even go up to the meh tier, but it certainly isn't so terrible that it's actually an enjoyable time. So is Noble Racing worth revisiting today? Probably not, unless you're a collector, a historian, or just curious about the forgotten corners of the PS2 library. But as a piece of gaming history, it's surprisingly telling. It shows what happened when developers tried to squeeze ambition into a budget that simply couldn't contain it. It's not a good game, but it's certainly not a bad one either. It's a product of its time, cheap, clunky, but strangely endearing. In the end, Noble Racing feels exactly like what it is, a budget racer made with noble intentions. And so that takes us to the end of our look at Noble Racing, and with it this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. So have you guys played Noble Racing? If you have, what did you think of it, and would you rank it any differently? Let me know in the comments section down below. And as always, if you have a suggestion for a game you want to see in this series, pop it down there as well. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. A massive thank you to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support, and all I really have left to say is I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.